It's funny the way we think about money. Money is on everybody's mind, right? Economy going well, thinking, wow, how much money can I earn in the stock market? Can I become a millionaire? Can I retire early? Economy going poorly, oh, do I need enough money? Do I have enough money to survive? Oh, my bills, can I afford a used car even? Money is a big thing. And it's funny to me how we sort of think about money separately, depending on what the item is. Isn't money in the absolute, whether it costs $1,000, it's $1,000. Does it like you have a different bank account for the car versus for the house? Is it like a special second stomach for dessert that many Americans have? I don't think so. Money comes out of your money, which is one big pile sitting there in your house, right? So why do we think about money differently and value differently depending on what the item is? So say I'm traveling. I'm in Vietnam right now. I'm like, wow, this hotel, it's a Hilton, a full-service Hilton with a lounge, with a nice breakfast. They treat their members very well. I have diamond status in Hilton, by the way, which is worth nothing. But they treat really well. It's only $80. I could never get that in the US. Or I could find this decent hotel, motel, if you will, that has no amenities but has a decent room. There's nothing else I need, and it's $20 a night. $20. I could never find that in the US either. I remember a decade ago, my friend and I were traveling through the South. We wanted to stay in a Roach Motel because he thought somehow it's interesting. We found some $40-some motel by the side of the road. It was horrible. But anyways, that's a story for another time. But $20 I can't find in the US either. Or compromise $40 for a nicely designed hotel with cool looking sort of facades and stuff like that. That seems like a good deal also I can't find in the US. What is the better deal? So the thing is, that's hard to compare, but what's funny is that many things we compare very easily when it should be just as difficult. When you have a budget for a vacation, it includes everything, right? It's not excluding housing. It's not excluding food. It's including all of these things. Yeah, we have a larger portion to housing, right? $150 a night for a hotel doesn't sound like a lot. $150 for a meal, that sounds like a lot. But why? It's all coming out of the same pocket, right? Who is to say that a $150 meal is any more expensive than a $150 hotel? You may say, well, yeah, but that's just hotels in general cost more. Okay, so you're telling me that basically paying $20 for a hot dog at Disneyland is not expensive because everything at Disneyland costs more anyway? I mean, everybody understands Disneyland's expensive. I don't think anybody would say it's not expensive. It's just that it's just Disneyland pricing. Nothing to be shocked at. Well, I mean. But the thing is, why do we think of it as different pockets, right? Why do we think of food as it should be cheaper and housing as it should be more expensive? Or maybe if people are wealthy enough, they think of it the opposite. Hotels, yeah, $400 or $500, that's about it. But food, you could go up to $1,000, $2,000, which is true, right? I mean, when you go to these really fancy places in the middle of the French countryside with a Michelin star, I'm guessing $1,000 is not a big deal. But finding a hotel that expensive out there probably is pretty hard. But why is it that we think of them as different and we don't actually compare prices across categories, right? If you're renting a car and you paid $100,000, right, for a week's rental, that'd be a lot of money. But if you're renting a yacht and you paid $100,000, it's not bad, right? I mean, if it's like the yacht that Bill Gates took in the Mediterranean with a submarine hatch and a helicopter port and blah, 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 right? But it's funny how we have this sort of basis or an anchor, if you will, of how much something should cost based on what category it is. I think that's one interesting thing. For example, cars, they don't cost that much. For most people, $100,000, that's a lot of car. But when you get to the category of supercar or rich people's cars, hundreds of $1,000s, that's normal, right? Is it based on expectations of how much you expect a hotel to be, how much you expect food to be, right? Like here in Vietnam, things are mostly cheap for food. But when you go to fancy places, right? We went to this place called Runam Cafe. It's a nice cafe. They had them in very fancy places, and they're all very well decorated inside. A lot of cafes are well decorated anyways, they're not that expensive. But anyways, we went to one and it's like, my wife's parents said, hey, is this US prices? Well, it actually is. A drink is $6. Which in the US is normal cafe, sit down, sit inside, right? Or maybe even cheap for a fancy place. But for Vietnam, it's very expensive compared to other things. But don't you want what you want? And it sort of doesn't matter what other things cost if you're not going to get them, right? If I want a certain camera, I need it to have all the features I want. Do I care how much other cameras cost when they don't meet my criteria? Let's say you're buying a new car and you have certain requirements. Say you're buying an electric vehicle and you need to have a certain range. Does it matter that you can get cheaper ones that don't have the range? How is that relevant, right? Or let's say you're looking for food and there's all this food with artificial sweeteners and this or that, and you don't want that. You don't want all these chemicals in your body. You want the real deal. Does it matter that it costs 5 times the other one? 5 of those other ones don't make one of this better one, right? Why do we bother comparing prices in the same category, but somehow think about it in different categories and we just don't compare anymore? It doesn't make sense to me. Let me give you an example of somebody who actually understands that. I have a friend who travels frugally sometimes. That's what some people say, but they don't encapsulate the way she travels. She may couch surf, she may stay in hostels, blah, blah, blah. And then she'll go eat at this nice French restaurant and blow 100 euros in one go. She'll buy a 10 euro cup of orange juice in Rome and say, it's delicious, I need another one. And she'll be staying in 10 euro a night hostel. To most people, that doesn't make any sense. I venture to say, though, that when you stop thinking money comparatively, or when you stop comparing in the same category, start comparing across categories, maybe you get your priorities straight. Maybe you realize how you actually think. Do you value staying in a nice place? If you don't, why do you need to spend 100 euros in a hotel when you could care less what the hotel is like? You just need a place to sleep, right? Just like the people who have money and yet still fly economy class on long, long international flights. They don't care, it doesn't bother them, they don't derive much extra enjoyment from spending a few grand. Why don't they blow it on food or something else, right? Like we try to justify it, saying, yeah, you're paying for this meal in first class. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Probably go to a few nice Michelin star restaurants. But, you just can't get it in this setting, right? Without paying $1,000 more or, $2,000 more for business or first class internationally. But if you don't care about it, why do you bother spending the money? Why let other people dictate what is valuable to you, what is worth it to you? Why not just compare across categories or not compare at all and do what you enjoy? Doesn't that make a lot more sense? Why not live like you're already rich? I'll talk about that more in the future.